The Duke and Duchess of Windsor, former King Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson, were definitely the most talked about royals of the 20th century. Edward was the former king of the United Kingdom who in 1936 abdicated the throne to marry the twice-divorced American socialite Wallis Simpson. As the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, they became politically sensitive figures. Not only had Edward been a vocal supporter of the appeasement policy towards Nazi Germany, but he'd also expressed admiration for its strongman leader, Adolf Hitler. When war broke out in 1939, they were living in France. And when Germany invaded in 1940, they fled to Spain and then Portugal. Along the way, they left behind a trail of valuable art and jewels, which ended up in the hands of Nazi dealers. Once in Portugal, they were effectively stuck as the British and Portuguese governments couldn't agree on sharing them. By this time, German intelligence saw the couple as potential allies for a peace deal with Britain. Hitler reportedly considered using Edward as a figurehead to influence the British government. And so it was that the Duke found himself at the center of a Nazi plot. Operation Willy, as it was called, involved either kidnapping or persuading the Duke to collaborate with the Germans. They even went so far as to promise him the British throne if Germany won the war. But by this time, the Duke was more interested in smoking cigars, having affairs, and driving his fancy car than he was in ruling Britain. Ever the cautious one, Prime Minister Winston Churchill feared that the Nazis would use the Duke to get a foothold in Britain. He didn't want to see Edward as a puppet in German hands. So in 1940, he removed him from his post as governor of the Bahamas and reassigned him to the same post in the remote colony of the same name. While the Duke and Duchess were certainly treated well and lived in luxury compared to the hardships of wartime Europe, they still had to be discreet. Large crowds were kept away from their house, and loud parties were forbidden. There was also a small contingent of bodyguards to watch over them. The Duke enjoyed driving around the island, attending garden parties, and mingling with the elite. But it was a far cry from the life they'd once known. After the war, they spent most of their time in France, living in a mansion near Paris. Although they were shunned by most of the British royal family, they were given a generous allowance by the government and were largely left alone. The Duke and Duchess remain controversial figures to this day. Some see them as a security risk and a potential liability for the British government, while others see them as misunderstood exiles who simply wanted to live out the remainder of their days in peace.